Hello, my name is Tom Craigs. I'm a running coach working for a company called Running With Us. We are the running coaches supporting Running Bug and a Running Bug community in the UK. And I've put together a series of training plans to help you build up over the course of 10 weeks to a half marathon. I want to talk to you today for those of you who are looking to follow the beginner's plan that I've put together and give you a few tips and ideas about how to make the plan work for you. Now, over the years of coaching athletes, I've worked with people who have come from absolutely nothing to build up towards completing a half marathon in a very short period of time, and it can be done. Training for a half marathon, whilst it might seem daunting to you at this stage, can be totally achievable off 3 to 4 runs a week and very balanced with busy work, family and social lives. So have a little look at the training plan that I've put together. You'll see that it includes training that's split over 3 to 4 runs a week. The plan outlines those 4 sessions as a mix of 3 runs and 1 cross-training session. Now, we've written articles and advice on what cross-training means, but in simple terms, think of it as training that's going to work your heart and lungs that isn't running. So that could be work on the bike, it could be swimming, it could be elliptical training, or it could be aqua jogging in the pool. Anything that's going to get the heart rate up a little bit, but is going to save your legs the impact of running. The other 3 sessions in the week are getting your running shoes on and getting out the door and building up sustainably your ability to run both longer, easier effort, but also some shorter, slightly more intense bursts to build a bigger heart and bigger lungs and to get that half marathon pace feeling that little bit easier later down the line. So in the early weeks of the plan, the goal really is to get your body used to training at a fully easy, fully conversational effort. And you'll see the way the plan is structured outlines 4 training zones. Pretty straightforward. Zone 1 is fully conversational, fully easy. If we were running together, we'd be able to chat and converse, no problem at all. Most runners tend to go out and do a lot of what they call easy running a little bit too hard. So this is the one where you really need to focus on holding back, really making sure you're fully controlled, and that will allow you over time to build up more volume in your running in a very sustainable way. Zone 2 is what I kind of call bus stop running. It's still controlled running, but it might be just pushing the pace a little bit. We call it bus stop running because, of course, it's that pace where you see somebody running the other way, or you're in front of a bus stop and people are looking, so you just push the pace on a little bit. There's bits and pieces of this in the plan, but actually not so much. And we would really encourage you to do the majority of your running in the early weeks back in that easy, in that zone 1 effort. Zone 3 is a little step harder, and you will see increasing blocks of this as the training plan goes through. We'll call this really a controlled discomfort. And it's a hard thing to get your head around. Well, actually, in simple terms, if you go out and you include the blocks we've suggested, which are run to time, so short blocks of 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, at an effort where you might only be able to speak 3 or 4 words to somebody running alongside of you. So that's pushing the pace a bit, testing the upper limits of your aerobic fitness, but not so hard that after 60 to 90 seconds you're having to slow down and finishing with your hands on knees and really, really short of breath. So zone 3, you'll see that popping up in a plan, increasing blocks as the weeks go by, and it's a really important one to make that half marathon pace feel a great deal easier. For most of you, it's probably falling about your 10k race pace. And finally, we've got zone 4. That's fully hard, really strong running that might be 3k, 5k, up to 10k pace, but probably more in that harder 3 to 5k zone. There's not lots of it in this training plan because ultimately the goal of the plan is to get you used to running for sustainable long blocks of time to cover those 13.1 miles. There's bits and pieces of it later on in the plan. A few other bits to note in there. You will see that I've included some elements that are called pickups. Pickups are just simple, short, 15 to 20 second bursts where we get the legs turning over a bit quicker. They're not really there to stress your heart and lungs. They're really there to just get your legs used to doing some faster running, and it will leave you feeling a bit sharper and a bit quicker come your faster, harder efforts later on in the week. You'll often see those added at the end of an easy run. So for a lot of you, this might be your first half marathon if you're following a beginner plan. Well done. It's, as I say, a big challenge, but the half marathon is a very achievable, sustainable distance, but that you can complete and really feel a fantastic sense of achievement when you get to the start line, and even more importantly, of course, when you cross the finish line. Your key to getting this right is to make sure that these first 3 to 4 weeks are really sustainable. If you go out and you're always pushing too hard, you're turning those zone 1 efforts into zone 2 or even zone 3 efforts, actually after a week or two you're going to be so tired, your muscles are going to be aching so much that things are going to start to slip away a bit. You'll start to miss runs and you'll start to lose the motivation for your training. So be very, very patient. Adapt the plan to fit your lifestyle. You don't have to run on the days that I've suggested that you run. You can chop and change it to fit your work, your social life, your family life patterns, and that's totally fine. If you feel that you can't get out and do the cross training I've suggested, you could replace that with an easy run at the same intensity and the same volumes. That's totally fine. If you feel that actually a bit of tiredness is building up quite quickly, or you've got a little ache and a pain, maybe it's time to slightly adapt the plan, take a bit of extra rest, or maybe take an easier run instead of one of the zone 3 slightly harder runs I've suggested. So take ownership over the plan. It's not a tablet of stone. It's there as a broad guide to give you some idea of the key elements that you're going to want to include to cover the 13.1 miles. There are loads of different ways that you can train for a half marathon. Along this journey, you will have times where you start to question, well, am I doing the right things? Because so-and-so in the office or a friend or a family member is following a different training plan that includes stuff that I'm not doing. Maybe it's short, hard, intense efforts on a treadmill or really hard hill sessions, and that's totally fine. There is no one right way to train for a half marathon. The key for you is to say, actually, the point of this training plan is that it builds you up sustainably in a controlled way, in a highly half marathon specific way. So I really encourage you to stick on the plan as much as you can and try not to get too diverted by including other elements that other people are doing. This is about you and about progression. So taking you from where you are in week 1 and making sure that by the time we get to week 4, 5 and 6, you can look back and say, yeah, I've definitely measurably improved. About halfway through the plan, you'll see a little cutback week around week 5 where we slightly reduce the volumes, slightly reduce the intensity, and I've suggested even in there you might even look to go and see if you can find yourself a 10k race to do that week that will give you a flavour of what it's like to run around big groups of other people, and it will give you a feeling of a sense of achievement and that you have a waypoint along the way to that half marathon goal. If you can get in there for one, that's fantastic. If you can't, please don't panic. It's not a major problem. You could that week potentially look at doing a local 5k park run. That could be a great alternative to going out and doing a race. But do take that cutback week halfway through the plan. It's really important for your body to absorb all of the training you've done and move forward into the final 4 to 5 weeks of harder training before race day. Keep in touch with the other articles and the other advice that you will find that myself and Nick Anderson from Running With Us have written for Running Bug. That details maybe some of the strength and conditioning work you might want to include to complement the running training we've put in the plan. As I've said, there's also detailed advice on how you can include cross training to boost up your aerobic fitness while saving your legs. And a whole load of other advice around stretching, around what you can do with your nutrition to make sure that that is keeping up to speed and up to scratch as you improve and increase you're running over coming weeks. So the key thing, guys, here is to say it's totally achievable to train for a half marathon. Look at the plan, ring fence those runs that I've outlined in your diary and really commit to getting them in the bank over the next 4 to 6 weeks. Because if you can get the early part of this training plan right, the second set of the plan where things really step on a little bit and those long runs start to extend out to an hour 40, an hour 50, you will really start to see the benefits of a consistent kind of base building block in these early weeks. Don't panic and think that you have to go out and run 13 miles for your longest long run in training. You'll see from the effort zones and the amount of time I've suggested you run for that some of you, in fact many of you, probably won't get to 13 miles in your training. For some of you it may only be 10 miles, and that's absolutely fine. On race day, the taper period that you've had through the last 7 to 10 days, the motivation and the adrenaline and the goal, the reason why you're running that race will push you through those final miles that you may not have completed in your training. So please don't feel like you need to go and cover the distance. In fact, for many of you, I'd advise you don't, because you'll feel so tired on race day. Actually, you will have done some brilliant training, but you'll be a bit too fatigued to go out and hit your best half marathon. So be patient, stick with the blocks as I've laid them out, and for those of you who don't feel fully ready to cover all of the volume I've suggested running, that's totally fine. As you will see in the plan, we've suggested you either run some of these blocks or you do them as a mix of running and walking. And this is where really, for some of you, the ego's kind of got to go in a box a little bit. For many of us, we feel that we're not progressing unless we're able to complete every run as a full run with no stops and no breaks or no walking. And actually, it's just not like that. Be patient. If you are not yet able to go out and run for 30 to 40 minutes sustainably without having to walk, that's totally fine. But what I really recommend you do is, instead of running as far as you can and walking the rest of the runs, that you plan it out and you build in structured running and walking from the very start of each of those runs. That might be 5-minute walk, 2 to 3 minute 5-minute run, 2 to 3 minute brisk walk, and building up the blocks of running over time to build up towards 10, even 15 minutes worth of easy running with a 3 to 5 minute brisk walk recovery, particularly in your long runs, just breaking it down like that so as you get used to more time on feet. As the weeks go by, you'll gradually reduce the walking breaks and increase the blocks of running you're doing, but it's done in a sustainable way. In those long runs, if you try to run as far as you possibly can, blow up and walk the rest, you will cover that run a lot more slowly and losing probably confidence as you go. So do it in a structured way. In 6 to 8 weeks' time, trust me, you will be able to run for much longer, much more sustainable blocks of running. And then when you stand on the start line in a half marathon, you will have a really clear sense in your mind about how much of the half marathon you'll run. Some of you may run the whole thing, and that's fantastic. Some of you may run the whole thing actually at a pretty quick pace, which is great because you'll progress faster than you probably thought you would. Some of you, though, even by half marathon day, may not be fully ready yet to run the whole half marathon, and that's fine. But the way the plan is structured will take you through a series of runs that by half marathon day you will have got used to doing some long blocks of consistent running and some long runs where you've done it as a mix of running and walking at different intensities. So enjoy the training. Please do keep in touch with us. Please do check out the other articles, and enjoy training for your first half marathon, and enjoying the journey with Running Bug. Good luck to you all, and speak to you soon. Thanks.